Hello, I'm Miranda Mizen, Director of Equities Research at TABB Group, and I'm joined today by Jeanette Turner, who is Managing Director and General Counsel, Advised Technologies. Jeanette, welcome. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. And we are going to chat this afternoon about Form PF and some of the complexities involved in that. So let's start with the general thought of what is Form PF and what is involved here and who has to file.
Well, Form PF is a new regulatory reporting obligation for SEC registered investment advisors that have 150 million or more in private fund regulatory assets under management.
Okay, so that's a lot of the hedge fund population that we're talking about there.
Yes.
Okay. And now there've obviously been, filing is done in stages, and funds with over 5 billion assets under management have already filed last year. So there are lessons to be learnt along the way. So could you maybe share with us some of these lessons learned? Let me start with the preparation side. How complicated is it? Does it require a lot of preparation, or is it just something you could just fill in at the end of the day because it's just another form that needs to be filed?
It's not. It's definitely not just another form that needs to be filed. We learned, we worked with many of the filers that filed last summer, which, as you said, was 5 billion or more in regulatory assets under management. And one of the themes that became very quickly clear is that you need a lot more time than you think that you do. When you're flipping through the form, you think, I've got this is not so bad, these are just a few questions I need to answer. And it's only when you put pencil to paper and try and answer the questions that you realize just how complicated the form is. There's some instructions that are kind of counterintuitive, and some defined terms are not clear, and you have to really think about how you're going to calculate some answers or where you're going to source the data from. A lot of this doesn't come out until you actually put pencil to paper and realize just how complicated the form is.
And what about the data side? Because a lot of funds have multiple primes now.
Yes.
Is there something that needs to be done there? Does the data come in, all sorts of forms that they need to, do something with it?
That's a really great question. One of the things that the previous filers learned was that there's a lot of prep work that needs to be done before you can actually start the process of filing the form. If you have multiple PBs, they don't all summarize information in the same way. So you need to aggregate the data and then normalize the data before it's useful to you. Also, if you have a data warehouse, you need to make sure they even have the data that you need. We had one filer that found out in the middle of the process that their data warehouse wasn't even tracking an entire set of trades that they needed in order to fill out the form. They also need to go back and tag certain asset classes in a certain way according to how you need to tag them for the form. So there's a lot of prep work that needs to be done before you can file the form.
And obviously, having filed once, you're going to, Form PF is here to stay. You're going to have to file and refile. Is there anything you can do to make it easier, for the next time around?
Absolutely, that's a really great question. I would say the piece of advice we heard over and over and over again from those who filed this summer is that this form is just too time-consuming to not automate. You are collecting data from multiple sources and you're feeding it into this form, and you need to compile that data, and you have a lot of manpower that is going into that, a lot of man hours, excuse me, that are going into this process. And in order to repeat this going forward and make it quote-unquote business as usual for your company, you need to automate.
So it's possible to use pencil, paper, Excel spreadsheets, but if you're not doing it, you're actually opening up maybe yourself to risk of not meeting the deadlines, not doing it in a way that's standard with everybody else. So there are benefits to a level of automation and standardization.
Yeah, that is true. You could file it manually if you wanted to. We found that many that tried to do that before, they found it just too complicated, and the schema that's put out by the IARD website, that FINRA is where you file, and was just too complicated for them to handle. And you're open to user error and other complications. It's just a lot easier to automate.
Is that equally true for large, for small funds as well as large funds, or does is there a size difference here, or is it the smaller funds, even though they have to file a little bit later, are filing exactly the same data as the larger ones, and so there's a level of complexity that's equally for the small guys as it is for the big guys? Is that true, or is there a difference of size here?
There is a difference in size. The SEC has split up the hedge funds, when we're speaking about hedge funds, into two groups. If you are 1.5 billion or more in hedge fund assets under management, you're considered a large hedge fund advisor. You're going to be filing quarterly instead of annually. You're also going to be filling out more sections of the form, and so there's more information that you need to provide. So if you're 1.5 billion or more in assets under management for a hedge fund, it is more complicated than a smaller fund. Having said that, a smaller fund, you don't have the resources that you need to fill out this form, manually. You are going to be doing it every year. You do want to keep a track record for yourself in order to go back and look at other answers that you've done in years prior for maybe an SEC exam or whatnot.
So that level of being able to know what you did before and why you filled it out that way, and being able to repeat it and know what maybe nuances change over the course of the year. People change too, so within companies. So
yes, there's turnover at a company, and what if the person who filled out the form leaves? You need to have this playbook and keep track of notes of what you did and for the previous filings.
It sounds pretty heavyweight and pretty complicated. We know it's a requirement under the new laws. So I guess the biggest thing that is got to start early and pay big attention to this.
Yes, definitely.
So thank you for that insight. I'm Miranda Mizen. I'm Director of Equities Research at TABB Group, and I am joined today by Jeanette Turner, who is Managing Director and General Counsel at Advise Technologies. Jeanette, thank you.
Thank you.